Hello, hello. Welcome to Sit and See. I'm Dr. Jared Jones. Research specialties are ancient systems of meditation, the cognitive science of meditation, Buddhist philosophy, and the philosophy of science. I'm also a bit of a practitioner. Been training in Buddhism for about 21 years and Taoism also for another 6. And the point of this class is to train lay people living in the real world how to do meditation and how to get more of the benefits out of their retreat into real life. So, welcome if this is your first episode of this class, this live stream. I'm going live at the moment almost every day. I don't know that I don't know that I'll be doing that forever, but for the time being, I'm doing this class almost every day. So for those of you who are new, welcome, and for those of you who are returning, welcome as well. So for a number of reasons, decided to do this class a little bit earlier today. I may I may do this class at 8 a.m. 8 p.m. London time instead of instead of 8:30 from now on. I'm debating. We shall see. In any case, no big exciting announcements today. Just doing some meditation together and seeing how it goes. Right. Does anyone have questions from the last class or previous classes before we get going? Welcome, Dada Daddy and Dave. Welcome. Some of you probably already saw, but the next episode of the Two Truths podcast is coming up as well. I was able to get a wonderful, wonderful Kagyu slash Nyingma practitioner, Justin Wall, otherwise known as Lama Karma, to come on the podcast and talk about his experiences doing 2 3-year retreats. And he's also been the head of a retreat center for quite some time, having come out of those retreats, and is a layperson. So got married and has a daughter, and so I thought, wow, what a really interesting opportunity. There are, of course, some Tibetans who have gone through a similar pathway from layperson to intensive retreat to married life and so on and so forth, but it's a much smaller number of Westerners who have done so. And so I thought, wonderful, here's someone living in the United States who's a family man who's undertaken very, very difficult retreat. It'd be great if I could get him on. And through the grapevine, I was able to get him to come on. I believe it's the 8th of next month. Yeah. So for those of you who are interested, put that on your calendar. It should be up already on the channel as an upcoming item. Yeah. Hmm. Um. So on that question, not very much. Um, Non-dual experience means that it becomes clear to you from direct experience that the awareness having the experience and the experience are something that can't be pulled apart from each other. Non-dual, not two. Also, not one, right? Not one, but also not two. So your awareness can generate all sorts of experiences, but it can't ultimately be pulled apart from the experiences that it creates, and those experiences can't be pulled apart from the awareness that generates them. So they're not two. They're not one, but they're not two. So that fact about our perception is ordinarily covered up by conceptuality, and only under fairly rarefied conditions for normal people is that uncovered. Maybe if you do, mm, if you're a matador or you're a Formula One driver, or you do extreme sports of some kind, then maybe in your peak experiences, your flow state experiences, maybe you've had some non-dual experience, but for most people it's pretty foreign, you know? And even at the level of being able to feel sort of, for lack of a better term, substances surrounding the body, sub-physical substances surrounding the body and so forth, you can feel all those things without the mind entering a non-dual condition. I don't know. Some people have a very natural ability to feel various kinds of sub-physical substances associated with being alive, and kind of is what it is. They're not necessarily related. They're not necessarily related. The training for non-duality is a relatively beginner's experience. It's kind of I say this a lot, and I think people don't believe me, but these kinds of experiences are relatively easy to generate and relatively easy to explain why they should happen. And they're the beginning of a real process of doing something rather than the end of some process of doing something. What do I mean by this? Um, well, before I say that, if as I've said many times, if you could experience what vision is actually like, it would probably change your life for the rest of your life. Because normally it seems like there's a me in the middle and there's stuff that I'm seeing over here, and I'm using my sensory organs for vision and so forth to see that stuff over there, and I'm kind of in between or on the side somehow. I own the vision, and to a degree I own what's being seen, right? It's my vision, it's my ability to see, and this is what I see. In reality, there's there's nobody in the middle like that. That's a conceptual process that we do, that we divide it up into at least two, but usually three components like this. So in reality, if you can just experience what vision is with much less conceptual layers put on top of it, it looks like this. The seer and the seen come together like this, and you see that you can't actually pull them apart, and there's definitely no you in the way you thought there was in between the two. And that will be probably an earth-shattering profound experience for you, but it is just the beginning of something. It's like the introduction. It's like the 101 college class. It's not a high school class. It's like 101 college class, but it's the beginning of a long process of doing stuff with yourself and gaining insights. So, yeah, I mean, again, I hope this doesn't sound too strange. Sometimes I say these things and I wonder if people think I'm just making it up or whatever, but I mean, you should be able to generate a non-dual experience, like with a bit of training, you should be able to generate a non-dual experience of vision that quickly, and then turn it off, and then hearing, and then turn it off, and then smell, and then turn it off, taste, body. Because if you can't do that, you can't analyze whether or not there's a self in between. If you can't analyze from direct experience whether or not there's a self in between seer and seen, hearer and heard, tasted and taster and taste, hearer and heard. I said that already, didn't I? Smeller and smelled, touch and the sense of touch and what is touched, and the knowing factor in terms of the sixth awareness, the mental consciousness, and what mental consciousness is aware of. If you can't directly experience each of those without all those conceptual layers on top, you can't do insight meditation into selflessness with any degree of real certainty in your experience. You can do based upon logical reasons that are quite good, you can do those kinds of analysis, but if you don't have direct access to them, you don't have much of the very best evidence you would want to use in a meditative context to look at selflessness. So this is why in my way of teaching all this, I put the analysis of uh, I put the analysis of sorry, I put rumination meditation at number 5 in terms of skills because I think it's beneficial to go through a process of gaining access to the various layers that make up your being and then to train in analysis so that you can do things like analyze selflessness, analyze in terms of emptiness, and then do all these other ruminations that improve your character based upon what you have found there in your character. Mm. Well, that's a bit different. So the fact that you're not separable entirely from your environment might be non-dual in a philosophical sense, but it's not non-dual in terms of experience. In terms of non-dual experience, non-dual means that the awareness and the knower can't be pulled apart, and that it's evident to you from direct experience they can't be pulled apart. Not just intellectually that you've made the argument, but it becomes obvious to you that these two things can't be pulled apart. And at least from my students' experience, training in these types of awareness, from my students' experience, generally these are again they're kind of like earth-shattering experiences the first time they happen because it's not what you thought. It is usually for most people not what they thought at all. Even if they've studied some things and read some things and thought about some things, very different. Okay. So in terms of working with all those other layers though, there can be benefit there. It's not that it's useless. Um, you know, if like if for example through the 18 Lohan program with Neil Ripsky that I have in the links down below, the how to say part of the curriculum is you train your body and then you train the subtler physical aspects, which is these energetic aspects, although I hate that word. And then you're training the mind. But I mean, you're training the mind all along, of course, but then you're training the mind more explicitly. And then you train even subtler aspects of the body, even subtler aspects of that subtle physical system, and even subtler aspects of the mind. So this is the sort of flow chart, if you will. Northern Illinois. Is the live real? I hope it's real. I mean, it's as real as everything else, I suppose. uh, okay. Well, unfortunately, oftentimes in this class, I just give people a little taste of whatever we happen to be talking about at the time. But non-duality is one that I can't promise you in 5 minutes or less. Generally speaking, one of my students, when he was doing intensive breath meditation, he found that his awareness, the center of his awareness, was moving forward to where the nostril is. So he was starting to have non-dual awareness of the sensations of breathing, but he didn't know what it was. To him, it felt like his mind was almost moving outside of his body because it was moving here. It wasn't moving outside of his body, but you know, to have your awareness move forward is again, it was very surprising to him, right? Because normally our awareness feels, for most of us, like it's in our head somewhere. Mm. Yeah, I was just joking around. I was just joking around. Northern Illinois. Yeah. So yeah, qigong stuff can be quite good. It gets very hard to find good qigong stuff. Uh, from what I've seen and heard, Neil Ripsky has a lineage, holds a lineage of Shaolin Neijin Gong, which is a really powerful type of qigong practice. That's a that usually people don't talk about very much because if you talk about it on the internet, it makes you sound a bit crazy. So I won't say too much about it, but you're welcome to go look it up. It's listed on the website as part of the course curriculum. But again, to actually make those practices work, where you can do some of the stuff that's a little bit weirder, let's say, you already have to be quite capable, and that involves training your body really well and preparing it, and then training your breath and training various other things and blah 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 blah. You have to prepare the system. It takes a long time. It takes years. It doesn't happen in weeks. So all these courses and things online where they're like, "Oh yeah, we're going to turn you into a qigong master in 6 weeks." No, they're not. They're not, and you can't. And they're lying to you. And if they're charging you a lot of money for it to do that, then you just got ripped off. You know, I mean, I've met people that can do some pretty interesting things, and it takes years, and it's really hard. And I've talked to them about those things, and it's not at all a casual activity. And you don't actually have to be as strict as a lot of the texts say, but if you're not as strict, like if you're not maintaining abstinence and you're not maintaining your diet and blah 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 blah, then it takes longer. Instead of taking 6 months, it takes 3 years or whatever. But you can still make it all happen. Yeah, yeah. There's quite a bit of overlap if you look at the layers of what I teach and the general sort of um, foundations of mindfulness kind of approach. All the same layers are there. I just teach them in a different order because we're not in retreat. If we were in retreat, that approach is fantastic. It works really well, very profound. But if you're not in retreat, a little harder. Okay. Yeah, yeah, weird walk. This is exactly my point. If you do foundation 1, 5 minutes, keep your breath where you intended it to put it, and try to get 60-70% of your awareness to pool where you put it, you'll notice very quickly you can't do what you thought you could do. If you've been meditating for a while, most people are like, this breath thing that you teach is really screwing up my meditation. My mind used to be so calm and blah, blah, blah. And now my mind is crazy. I'm like, no, man, your mind's been crazy the whole time. You just never noticed. A lot of people have gotten used to sort of just sitting there, letting their mind do whatever it wants. That's not actually meditation. There are practices where you do nothing, but you can't do those practices unless you're already a fairly capable meditator. You need to have a mind that already has a level of calmness where, for lack of a better term, your primary sort of focus ends up in a subtler state of awareness and there's activity happening on the surface of the mind, but the main body of your mind, so to speak, is not involved in that activity and is just watching it happen. But can you do that as a normal person? Not you personally, of course, dear listeners, but can most people do that as normal people? No. And if you tell them to do it, since they don't have the ability to look at their mind using a subtler aspect of mind, they just get involved in whatever the mind is doing and then they don't even notice that they're doing it. But if you give them an intensive breath practice like I teach, they notice right away that their mind isn't doing what they told it to do because you're only working on one skill. Bring the mind in, keep it there. Well, two skills: bring the mind in and keep it there. So if you can't get the mind in or you can't keep it there, you notice, right? This is why it works so well. I wish I could claim credit for it, but this came from the classics. The classics teach all this stuff, but not very many modern meditation teachers teach it. Okay. Uh yeah. Yeah, you'll also notice, I mean, weird walk, if you were to do the Lohan material, and by the time you get into the Qigong practice, and certainly by the time you get into the Neigong practice, you will notice many, many, many more layers to what makes you up, and what makes the environment up, and what makes up other people. The more aware you become of what's going on inside, the more you become aware of what's happening outside. And for lack of a better, for just by way of analogy, right? Unfortunately, the Western esoteric traditions are a broken line of tradition by their own admission, right? We've had to go back and reconstruct neo-pagan practices, or Celtic reconstructionist practices, or even stronger lines of Western esotericism like Hermeticism are an attempt to look at things like Egyptian practice and reconstruct what they were doing. You know what would be even smarter than trying to do all that? Not that you need to give up all that, but if you want to like figure out all the moving parts that make up the system, and try to use them in new and interesting ways using these other systems, find a system that never broke and learn it in great detail, and then see if you can find those layers in these other practices that you're doing from other systems. So, for example, the Chinese Taoist slash Shaolin system have 2,500 or 3,000 years of unbroken tradition working with every layer of the system. And they're quite sharp about how to access them, how to make use of them. And then they're also quite sharp in that, especially through the Taoist lines and to a degree, sort of the Shaolin martial arts kind of lines, they're mainly maintained by lay people. And so whatever you're doing has to hit every layer that's important in a small number of practices, because you don't have much time. If you were living in a monastery or in the forest, you could do 8 hours of practice a day and no problem. That's all you do. That's what you do for a living. Somebody brings you some food every so often, and you're good, right? But in the real world, you have to have one practice, like the standing practice that I teach, for example, right? So you have one practice, standing practice, and this standing practice is suitable for starting to build the lower basin. It's suitable for improving your health overall to keep the body functioning as you get older. It's suitable for making the body ready to do martial activity. It's suitable for making the body better for seated practice when you go to do your seated practice. So you take one activity and you pack 10 different benefits, 20 different benefits into it. And then you also you design, or not design, but select amongst the things you could do based upon being able to hit all of the different layers that are important to you as a person, right? You need the body to last long enough that, assuming you don't get hit by a bus, that the body keeps working. You need the body to get better at sitting. You need the body to, you know, in case you get mugged or something, maybe if there's a chance you can survive. If there's a chance you can survive, that you have a little bit of self-defense capability just in case you need it. You know, all this stuff is there. Do I dwell in a castle? No, this is a flat. This is a flat in downtown Edinburgh. But some of the flats in Edinburgh are They were owned by very wealthy people in the past, and now they're very, very inexpensive. It's good. Thankfully. What we're discussing is somebody was asking about various types of practices that relate to how to say, uh, well, maybe not so important. Maybe not so important, but the important bit is that if you're a layperson living in the real world, the types of practices you select, you want those practices to cover as many things at the same time as possible because you don't have a lot of time to practice. And then you also want your practices to be able to generalize to more and more of your activities because once again, if you're not going to live in a cave or live in the forest or live in a monastery, you need practices that you can take out there into whatever you're already doing. Walking from your home to the grocery store, standing in line, sitting in a business meeting, listening, watching, right? So that you can take all these activities and turn them into better and better quality minds. And then in theory, you're on your way, right? Do no unwholesome activity, only engage in wholesome activity. Do that which transforms the mind. Okay, speaking of which, let's do some practice. Good. You do find things like that in the Buddhist canon too, Weird Walk. There are practices like that in both Theravada and Mahayana, but they don't talk about them as much. Okay, so we'll do a bit of seated practice today. Those of you who have done my practices before, we'll start with intensive breath, just a short session to get the mind in a little bit higher quality. For those of you who are new, intensive breath is based upon the Middle Indian period, the advice of the great meditators of the Middle Indian period of Buddhist practice, which state that short duration, high intensity practice can be very, very beneficial when your mind doesn't yet have a lot of capability in meditation. So, what does this mean? It means that you, instead of being very gentle, you use extremely great mental force, everything you can muster to bring your mind to the object of meditation. And since that's really demanding, that will be quite difficult to do if you try to do it with a visualized image or a mentally recited mantra or some of the other things that one might want to do it with in the beginning. Something that's quite easy to do it with is the breath because you don't have to generate the breath to do the practice. So, in the version that I teach, coming through one of my teachers who was considered in a couple of different lineages to be an accomplished practitioner, the practice lasts about 5 minutes and it goes like this. So, just breathe in through your nose, find a patch of skin in the nostril or near the nostril that has the most sensation, where you feel the breathing most intensely. Once you've found that patch of skin, you're going to try to, as intensely, as forcefully, as with as much strength, mental strength as you can, you're going to grab all of your attention and try to get it into that patch of skin. so that the rest of your body goes away, vision goes away, hearing goes away, smell goes away, taste goes away, and the only thing that exists is that patch of skin. Now, that's, of course, not going to happen today, but that's the intent. That's the intent, and you do that with as much force as you can so that if anything else appears in your awareness, you know that some part of your mind has gotten distracted from the activity. Some part of your mind is getting pulled out of the activity, right? So, with as much strength as you can, breathing in again, find the patch of skin. And when I say begin, bring your mind to that patch of skin with great force, great strength, great intensity. And between the in breath and out breath, or rather, excuse me, between the out breath and in breath, count from 1 to 7, 7 to 0. On 0, you can move the body a little bit if you need to. Other than that, keep yourself completely still. Since it's a short practice, you can bear being slightly physically uncomfortable. It's only 5 minutes. And today it'll be even less than that. Okay? So 3, 2, 1, begin. Take a short break. Okay. Breathe in through the nose. Then the patch of skin might be a different one. 3, 2, 1, begin. take a short break. All right. Breathe in through the nose. Find a patch of skin. 3, 2, 1. Begin. Mm. Difference. But when I'm training people in these techniques a little bit more formally, I recommend that when you're at the stage where you feel like you could do more practice of the type that I teach, if you're doing intensive breath, 5 minutes, short break, 5 minutes, short break, 5 minute short break is better than doing 30 minutes straight or 20 minutes straight. Because as I hoped some of you noticed doing an interval style training like this today, it allows you to keep the forcefulness or the energy of what you're doing quite high instead of, as the sort of intensity of it starts to go down, you stop and take a break. And then when you come back, the intensity is quite high again. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like high intensity weightlifting. And we're working just two muscles, sometimes I say. So the first muscle is grabbing your attention and pulling it in and pooling the bandwidth of your awareness somewhere. And the other muscle is keeping it contained once it's there, not letting it spread back out and not letting it jump to something else. So those are the two muscles you're working out very intensively. So in terms of the counting, in the when I teach this more formally, which is on the Five Foundations Meditation course here on YouTube, I have a playlist for it. Also, if you did want to support what I'm doing financially, of course, I teach all this for free and have it available for free. But if you wanted to support what I'm doing financially so that I can carry on doing it for free, the in the description below the video is my school course, SKOOL, and I have a whole community of people I'm teaching these techniques to a bit more intensively. And also, in the long run, those people will also help each other financially when it comes time to do retreat. Is another big idea because if there's 100 of us, let's say, when you need to go into retreat and it's going to cost you $500 or $800, between 100 of us, if we can all chip in $5, and that helps you go into retreat, that's easy to do, right? So like this through the school course community, I'm building up a group of people that want to do practice a bit more intensively and support my teaching activities and to support each other as a community when it comes time to do retreats and so forth. So in terms of the counting, when I'm teaching this a bit more formally, the counting you do in two ways. So you visualize the number. So the number would be here in front of you, about the size of your thumb, and at about the level of your sort of between your eyebrows here. And this is a recommendation from the classics. Once again, if you're trying to generate concentration, use a visualized image about the size of your thumb, about arm's distance at the level of the eyebrows. And I also recommend, just from experience, if your eyes are closed, the background is naturally black, even though That's not quite how it is in reality. It seems that way, certainly, while you're trying to do it. So it can be helpful to have white numbers instead of black numbers. So that's one aspect, is just visualizing the number very briefly. So you'd breathe in, breathe out, 1, that fast. Breathe in, breathe out, 2. Breathe in, breathe out, 3, right? Just bang for a moment. Also, while you're doing it, likewise, you don't just want to Likewise, you don't just want to visualize it, you want to hear it. So you're going to mentally recite it at the same time. So you would breathe in, breathe out, and in your mind you say loudly and forcefully, 1. Breathe in, breathe out, 2. So when you get in between the breaths, you visualize briefly and say the number briefly. And it's good to practice this way because it builds skills that you need later on to do other practices that are much more difficult and complicated. And so if you build up a little bit of skill being able to visualize and mentally recite at the same time while having your mind involved in a very powerfully concentrated activity, it's beneficial to be able to have that balance of cognitive skills happening at the same time. So that's why I teach it that way on the advice of one of my teachers. Count the whole time? Yes. Yeah, you want to count the whole time. 1 to 7, 7 to 0, 1 to 7, 7 to 0, 1 to 7, 7 to 0 for the whole time. During the breaks, you stop, of course, but during the whole actual session. Yeah. So this is what I call intensive breath practice. Like I said, comes through one of my teachers who's highly accomplished in both Zen practice and Gelug Tibetan practice. Why does the internal voice feel stressful? Probably because your mind is trying to do something really intensely. And normally, when you try to do something very intensely, you associate that with stress. Eventually, that'll go away. In the beginning, this will be a stressful, difficult activity. It's not easy. It's not restful. It's not relaxing. But eventually, because having your mind pooled in one place is relaxing by nature, eventually, just when you say, "Okay, mind, will you come to the nostril now, please?" It'll go, "Okay," and it just comes over, and it's nice. In the beginning, you say, "Mind, could you come over here?" And your mind's like, "Nah, screw that." And you're like, "Come on, mind, really? No, no, okay, I'll drag you over here, right?" And your mind's like, "No, no, I don't want to go over there." And so you're in this battle, and it's not restful. So, like this, uh, your internal voice may seem a bit stressed because you're involved in this battle, but the battle becomes less and less stressful and intense until it's just easy or relatively easy to get your mind to do what you want it to do. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so you're counting one. Yeah, yeah, that's a different kind of practice. Yeah, so word walk, you want to count one number between each breath, but I understand how you got that wrong. Okay, my friends, I will draw it to a close here. We shall pick it up next time. I don't have my special cup, so I'll just say